we have come out of lockdown. We were talking earlier, some of us, about this funny phase, I call it, of recovery that we're in, which is a bit of a limbo phase. You know, every one of us has views on how long this will go on for, and whether it will have to sort of operate like we are until next spring. But one thing that we do know is that there will be a major restructuring of how we do business, and I think anyone that has a crystal ball that can work that out could be a rich person. But that's one thing that we do know. So today our session is all about how to get your business online, because obviously digital has proven to be a great way of conducting your business during lockdown, and will certainly continue to be that way as we all do more online and all operate more locally, I think. So we're very pleased to do this series of Reach Out and Connect sessions with Merton Council, who are working with us on supporting businesses to operate successfully during these challenging times. And our speakers today, we have Mark Shipton, who runs a digital marketing company, Little Shock, standing up there, and Stuart Richard, who is not from Scotland, who is founder of Powered by Coffee, which is a leading web and software development agency. So what we're going to do is listen to their presentations first, and then we'll have a discussion. So if you would like to write any questions that you have as you go along in the chat box, then Caroline and I will pick those up as we go. So I think that's fine, and you are all muted. Just as good practice, we ask people to mute when you're not speaking because of all the feedback. I mean, we're all well aware of that by now, aren't we? And obviously you can see who is in the session with us in the participants listing at the foot of your screen. So okay, let's start then. So I'm going to welcome Mark. I'm delighted. Mark is doing a slightly different format that I've done on Zoom, so I love that straight away. So welcome, Mark, and over to you to give us your tips.
My first check just to see if I'm muted. No, I'm not.
No, you're not. No.
Right. Apologise if I look this way. My screen is here, my camera's here. My laptop went into meltdown over the weekend. Perfect timing. So I've gone back to the very old school, and I've got a whiteboard. I know not all of you will be able to see everything on here, but I will sort of run through all of the sections, and I've got my own individual notes that we'll kind of go through, and I will try and keep it to around 15 minutes. What I have designed is we'll run through just a few stats to kind of explain where we are at the moment in terms of how consumer behaviour has changed and how it's kind of specifically moved physical location as well as moved online. I'll then tell you about a few tools that you can all use for free. They're all Google tools and they're all entirely free, so you can try and spot your own trends within your industry and try to discover where your customers might be now, or maybe where you might find new customers. I'll then just try to run through a few things around targeting your demographics and customers, as well as how your messaging might need to change now. It's all obviously dependent on your industry. I can't be specific to you all, but I can try and be general and try to get your minds kind of thinking about how you can use this information to your benefit. I will then run through some more specific tools that will try to get you local business, local traction around local kind of economies, rather than the bigger picture that it quite often used to be. And then I will just talk about some things that are coming up in the future that, although we're currently adjusting to all this, they are just around the corner, and we may need to be thinking about those so we don't kind of get caught out again. So the first thing that I kind of did some very brief research to get some statistics on things like digital and people's physical location. So I've got all of this from this one Google tool, and the first stats are just in Greater London. So Google used their location data on people's phones to, they published this completely publicly, but it was meant to be for government use really. and they saw that retail and recreation destinations, so going to the shops, going to the cinema, they were down 36% compared to before the pandemic. People using public transport was down 50%, and critically, people visiting their workplaces, so people who had set their work location in their phone and visited there most days, that was down 55%. So that tells you a great deal about why and how customers have shifted. So maybe if you've got a location in the centre of town, why people just aren't there, because overnight their fundamental behaviour has changed. Another big one was the search term near me, so such as pet shop near me, bakery near me, in Google went up 250%. So that is a lot of people at home, not wanting to travel, not even wanting to go one stop on the train. They want to be in their local area, and they're searching for shops near them. Obviously, people are at home now, so that is so there's that being something worried about. That for me is a big opportunity, that people are shopping locally now and looking for a more sort of local economy. To allow you to try and, because there's lots of data out there, and allow you to try and get some data just for your industry or the things you're interested in or matter to you. Here are some tools that are all free on Google that I use quite a lot, that you can use to analyse these kind of trends. The first one has been around for a long time and people don't seem to know about it, and it is called Google Trends. So Google Trends will allow you to put in any search term into their tool, from garden fences to light bulbs to pet shops, whatever you want, and it will tell you over the entire existence of Google search whether the trend has gone up for that, or whether it's gone down, or whether it's stayed about the same. So you might think that you've been particularly hit by COVID, that people aren't searching for what you do anymore, but that might not be the case. It may be simply that they're just searching a different location. So you can search within your industry and find out whether your particular industry is trending, as it were. The next is called Google My Business, that I hope lots of you are aware of. If you don't have it, you should have it. It's probably the number one thing you should really have, because it manages your information and your online kind of Google reputation. So from Google My Business, if you have it already, you can find insights such as where people have searched for you, so whether that's in Google search or whether it's in the Maps function on their phone. You can find out whether they have clicked on your call button, clicked on your website button, or tried to find directions to your location. So that is the number one tool that I kind of recommend to people to manage what they do within Google's sort of ecosystem. We'll also come on to a little bit more about that, how you can use that to find new customers as well in a little bit. Third on the list, and this will only be relevant if you have a website currently, is analytics. So there are lots of analytics software out there, but Google is the big free one. So if you don't have it already, you can it's very easy to install on your website. Any competent web designer will do that very easily. And within there, you can find out a little bit more about who your current customers are. So you can find out their behavior, their age, the device they use. So potentially whether they're searching on their mobile rather than their laptop. And I would imagine that at the moment, mobile searches on most websites have probably increased as people are more at home rather than at work, where they might have a laptop or desktop. And the last one, which is relatively new, and it is brilliant, and I use it a lot, and it's Think with Google. So Google use their own marketing teams and all the online data they have, and they try to put together different insights and trends. They will tell you all about consumer behavior, and that's where I got all of this information from. It's all easily available, and they'll interpret all of their customer data and their search data and try to tell you how things have shifted and how you might like to prepare for those shifts or prepare for the future and where the trends are going. It's all really easy to understand. It's all basic stats, and a lot of it's written up into plain English, and they really break it down. So that is thinkwithgoogle.com, and that is excellent. I would recommend everyone just at least has a look at that, because it's really, really good. So these are the tools that you can use to try and discover these trends like I did. Next, I'll talk a little bit about targeting your customers, your demographics, your current demographics and how they might have changed. So if you have maybe seen a decrease in the amount of customers you're getting, there's certain things that you can think about. So I've listed a few down here. Are your customers still in the same location that they used to be in? But that's going to be a real big one, because as we kind of discovered here, they probably aren't. They've probably moved. I've got quite a few clients who are in the centre of town and they've just seen their footfall kind of plummet because their customers are just no longer around where they used to be. So try and think about who your current customers are or who they were. Are they in the same location? Fundamentally, do they still require your service? Because if they do, then all you need to do is shift your marketing, maybe your budget in your ads to try and target those people. If your service is one that's still required, then you've kind of got nothing to worry about. It's just finding the right people who still need it. Where are those people spending their time online? Because the use of the internet has, I think it was huge anyway. I think it's gone up by something like 30% since lockdown. And that's non-work related, that's even leisure related. So where are these people spending their leisure time online? And maybe you can advertise or set up an online sort of profile in those places. And importantly, are your customers in one of the vulnerable or shielding groups? Because if they are, they may be looking to spend, they're just not looking to spend now. Maybe you can target them in a different way. Maybe you can advertise the fact that you're COVID secure, you can operate remotely, whatever it is you do. If they are in that group, they may not just be spending money because they're not feeling confident at the moment, and you can potentially find ways to help them feel more confident. If none of those apply and you are convinced your customer base has changed, your customer base is no longer there, it's no longer spending money, then you need to think about a new customer base. So number one, do you think you need a new customer base? Try and work out whether the old one has changed and whether you can still target them. How do you find your new demographic online? So if your demographic has changed in age range or occupation or income level, where are those people going to be online? Are they going to be on Facebook? Are they going to be on Google? Are they professionals who are going to be on LinkedIn? Like, just really kind of have a think, get yourself in their mindset and understand where they may operate online. And then how are your new customers going to respond to your messages? So would your current messages that you use for your marketing, do they still apply in the current situation? Are they going to apply to someone who may be in a different sort of customer demographic? So could you potentially change those? That brings us on to messaging itself. Obviously, I can't sit here and tell you all how to message your customers because you're all within completely different sectors. So it's more of a trends that I've spotted, and just trying to give your mind a jog really to kind of think about how your messaging might need to change. So for a lot of my customers, the messaging that we've changed is we're now COVID secure. How are we COVID secure? What measures have been taken place to make sure that your business is now completely safe for people to return to? One of my clients is a gym, and they've had a real problem in trying to get people to trust back and get them back into the gym. So we've created a lot of online social media content and content for the website around how exactly they have secured the gym as it was. So things like deep cleaning, ventilation, the fact they've reached all of the government guidelines and surpassed them because they're quite an upmarket gym, so they try to be the best really. So they've surpassed all of the basic guidelines, and now people are slowly but surely returning, so they are seeing an uptake. So if you can think of ways that your business is either secure, or you could deliver your services remotely, or if you've got a physical bricks and mortar business that sells products, can you deliver these to the local community, and are you set up to do that? Maybe you get on one of the online platforms like Deliveroo or something like that to enable yourself to adapt to that. A lot of the messaging currently is around sort of local community and community building. So try not to make your business sort of maybe too corporate or faceless. Maybe try and put a touch of humanity behind it, because people are really trying to support local businesses. I don't think anyone's sitting at home hoping that all these businesses go bust. Actually, they really want to keep them going, and if they can find a way that they can help you, then I think that it's a good angle to go down. Critically, tell people you're open for business, because I have seen a lot of businesses online when I Google them. Google My Business, which is the tool we were talking about earlier, is actually unsure whether those people are even open, because no one's logged in to tell Google they are still open. And if you don't do that, you're going to slide down the Google listings, and people are never going to find you, because Google doesn't want to recommend a business that might be closed. So make sure that on all your online platforms, you are advertising that you are open as normal, or open a little bit differently, to publish information on that. And a big thing I've seen recently is people trying to portray themselves as authentic or well-established, because a lot of businesses at the moment, if people are worried about a business maybe going bust in the future, they may not want to put a big spend with you. So sort of advertising how long you've been around, how established you are as a business, kind of really sell yourself to make people understand that you're not going anywhere, and you're open for business, and you're kind of not in trouble, I suppose, really. So now I'm going to move on to some specific tools that you can use. So if we have discovered your trends, if you've got to grips with the tools you can use to get those trends, if you've had a thought about what those trends tell you in terms of who your new customers might be, or maybe how your old customers need some reassurance, these are the tools that I would then use to push all of that out online. So the first one we'll roll back to is Google My Business. So if you have this set up already, or if you don't have it set up already, make that a priority on your list of things to do. If you do have it set up, there's some really important things that you need to get right that will get you more views and get you up the Google algorithms. So the first one is setting your location really specifically. If you only operate within the Borough of Merton or Greater London or all of London, whatever it is, you go in there and just ensure that you've really got your location set, even if you have to do it on a postcode level. Because when you do that, Google will start to recommend you to people in that area. Like I'm in SW20, so if you've got SW20 listed on your profile, when I search at home on my computer, you've instantly gone up in the algorithm search. So that's a huge one you need to get right originally. Update 100% of the information that it is asking for. So don't spend 5 minutes setting out, really kind of sit down for an hour and go through everything. Go through your categories. You can list the categories of your business on there, update your opening hours, your website, add photos, do everything it asks for, because everything Google does runs on an algorithm, and the more information you give it, the more points it will flag against your account, and it will get you ranked as highly as possible. And Google only wants to recommend businesses it is assured are legitimate, open, and interacting with Google itself. So the more you give them, the more they'll push you up their algorithms. You've also got a feature on there as if it was a social network to post to Google My Business. And I'm sure you've all seen when you Google something, down on the right-hand side, you get an information panel about that business. And if you have a post to say you've reopened or you've got a special local offer on, that post will actually appear on the front page of Google without anyone having to do anything. So it's basically a free advert that can appear on the homepage of Google. A lot of people don't do this or aren't aware of this. They actually have a messaging feature as well. So people can use the panel on the right to send you a direct message without even going to your website. So I'm pretty sure that they were testing that, but I think it's now enabled for everyone. So all you need to do is download the app on your phone, and whenever you get any message, you'll just get a notification through to your phone, and you can directly answer customer queries direct from that app. And then last but not least, reviews. Google will look at a lot of sources around the web for different reviews, but it will think that its reviews are the best without a doubt. So it will give you a much higher ranking in its algorithm the more reviews you have and the more highly rated you are, because it only wants to recommend great businesses. So that should always be quite high on your targeting list if you want to do well within Google. Next on the list is another Google product, which I'm sure you've all seen, which is Google AdWords. So I'm sure most businesses are aware of this. Simply, the ads that you see all over Google are all managed by their Google AdWords platform. And as long as you understand your keywords or your key searches that people may be searching for to try and find you, you can open an AdWords account and you can start to advertise. But Google AdWords can be expensive, so I would recommend you spend some real time potentially searching for niche keywords or keywords that are within your location. So if you're a lawyer or a plumber, that would be a high value keyword if you just wanted to advertise against that. If you went for plumber in London, in Wandsworth, Merton, the lower you kind of get on that area scale, the more cheap those keywords would be to advertise against. You can also set your location on there, so you'll only appear, say, for searches within London. And a great feature that's not used a huge amount, although I'm sure people have used it on you all the time, is what's called remarketing. So within the AdWords platform, you can advertise to people who visited your website or potentially didn't buy or didn't fill in a contact form. You can actually track them around the web, and those ads are actually quite cheap. So maybe if someone comes to your website that didn't actually see what they were after, you can continue to advertise them as they go. In the same vein, next on the list is Facebook ads. Now, I know not everyone's a fan of Facebook, but in terms of the advertising platform, it is dirt cheap compared to Google. It's much cheaper, and the key thing they have over Google is the amount of what they call audience data that they hold on people. So if you know that your customers are interested in football, golf, cars, whatever it is, if you know that your demographic is really interested in a particular thing, you can advertise against those demographics. You can also cut it down to age, income level, be very specific about the locations that they're in, so you can only advertise within a mile or so of your location if you've got a very localized business. The amount of detail they hold on people is pretty creepy, but from a marketing perspective, it's really, really targeted, and you can use those tools really well and not pay a lot of money for them. You can also use something called a lookalike audience. So if you got a little bit of code on your website, you can track the visitors who've been to your website, and Facebook will build you another audience on their platform that looks like that one. They tick all the same boxes as that one. So you can, if you know your customers, you can easily find those customers again just from people who've been on your website.
Mark,
Yeah.
Diana here. Are you wrapping up now? Because
I have got 3 more tools to run through.
Quickly, that's lovely because it's fantastic. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Next one on my list, and this is one that is overlooked a lot. This is a real big one that a lot of people aren't looking at. It's called Nextdoor. I'm not sure if any of you have already been aware of this platform in your own community. So Nextdoor is a hyper-local social network. So you can only join within your very particular area, say within a couple of miles of your house, and you can only interact with people who are within your area. They have grown, I looked it up yesterday and written it down, they have grown to the 242nd biggest digital platform in the UK. So that's everything from Facebook, Spotify, Google, Apple, everything you think of online, they are now 242nd on that list. So they have grown exponentially since lockdown because people want to get more of a community feel. You can set up business pages and you can run ads. They're not that well developed yet because they're still quite a new company as things go, but it's definitely one you should be looking at. Last 2 on my list are local media and what I call local PR. So PR, people have been saying, has been dying for years, but actually COVID has strangely brought it back. People want local community news and they want to find out what's happening in their area. So try to research some things that are local to your area that are online. So the 2 that come to mind were Wimbledon Guardian and a nice woman called Lady Wimbledon, who you guys might know of, who does a lot of social media content, a lot of content on her website. I've seen her go around a lot of local businesses in Wimbledon and kind of advertise that they're open and give them a plug online. So that might be something to think about. And then the last on my list is just general social media and putting your content out there. So the big thing that I've seen online, we all kind of talk about key workers and local heroes and community building. So if your business can build local community and a local economy by, I don't know, donating to a food bank, doing some voluntary work, making some face masks, whatever it might be, if you can be shown to really be supporting your local economy and your community, that is another big one that I would be doing at the moment. And that is everything on my list.
Lovely.
How did I do? Is that 15 minutes?
A little longer, but it was packed, so we don't mind. It was fantastic, Mark, and I'm sure there will be lots of questions. We've got a few.
Yeah, sorry, I did breeze through that, so if you need to go over it again, that's no problem.
Yeah, well, people can get in contact with you, can't they, as well? So that's great. But we're going to move on then to introduce Stuart from Powered by Coffee. And Stuart, yes, over to you. Welcome.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay, everyone?
Lovely. Yeah.
Cool. So my name's Stuart. I'm with a development agency called Powered by Coffee, and we specialize in software, mostly kind of large-scale web projects. So kind of coming off what Mark was talking about, we're going to look today at digital transformation in kind of big quote marks. So we're going to step aside from kind of some of the marketing stuff and some of the web stuff and look at other ways digital can impact your business. Can I share a screen? Is that, no, it's disabled, that's fine. Cool.
You can.
So,
Caroline needs to make you the host, that's all.
Cool.
If you'd like to. Do you want to share a screen, Stuart? We can make
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, Caroline will make that happen.
That should
Okay.
work now.
Yeah. Okay, you should be able to do it, Stuart, now.
Cool. Just let me. Oh no, Keynote is failing on me. X. Share screen. Share my desktop. Share.
Yep, that's
Good. And we'll play. Cool. Just let me do my remote thing. It's all collapsing. Here we go. Can you see that all?
Yeah,
Can you see my slide?
Yeah, that's
Great.
perfect. Yeah.
2 seconds, sorry, I'll bring up my notes again here. Never try and do anything live, eh?
Or digital, maybe.
Anyway, yeah, cool. We'll keep going without it then. Right, so digital. I personally find digital to be a broad and confusing term. It's something that has been thrown around since the mid-90s to cover lots and lots and lots of things. Everything from telecoms, so looking at things like telephones, the internet in general, how we move stuff around, content. So TV and radio, a few years ago, there was a big transition of everything went digital. Marketing, kind of as we've already covered this morning, and the digital age, kind of representing where we are now. The digital transformation, as we're going to talk about today, is very much looking at businesses and how they transition from what they have done in the past and potentially have done very well, and to what they're going to try and do in the future, what they're going to do moving forward. So what is digital transformation? Sorry, losing my notes again. Here we go. Digital transformation is broadly, we're looking at implementing systems. We're looking at implementing systems that do things like improve customer experience and improve employee productivity and enable collaboration by default. And it's generally a way of building resilience, building a way of enabling your customer to access you easily, do what they want to do, but also enable your team to do everything they need to do much more effectively and much more without needing to impact on so many people, giving them much more freedom to do effective work. Of course, digital transformation has to align with the goals of the business. Generally in a profit business, that's going to be increasing turnover or reducing costs. Those costs that we can reduce are often things like bottlenecks put in place by physical systems and locations, so like being in an office, or servers that are locked down into a particular location, reducing barriers to accessing information within a team. So here's where we are today. Digital transformation is often led by a CEO or CTO or CIO, but with COVID-19, this is something that has really been forced in a lot of companies. So within kind of our world, this is a joke that's gone around a little bit. Who led digital transformation in your company? CEO, CTO, or was it actually COVID? And for most companies, it's been COVID. It's important to say that it's going to be different for each company. We have what I call the spreadsheet curve. I wasn't able to pull a graphic together of it, but we look at a scale of 0 to 8 of how many spreadsheets are in a company, with the peak being around 4. So the level of digital literacy within a company, starting at 0, where everything is on pen and paper, all the way up to 8, where every interaction in the company is digital. So the meetings are held online, all customer interaction is through portals and online systems, or other means to do that. There's almost no spreadsheets in those businesses. Businesses in the middle have lots and lots of spreadsheets. So it's a thing that will move through for each company. Different companies will have different needs, and there'll be different levels of transformation and digital literacy that are appropriate to each company. Some of our subscription companies, magazine companies that we work with, they are very high up on that scale because they need to be. But many smaller businesses, potentially within Merton, don't need so much. They maybe only ever really need to be a 1 or 2 in our scale. So to kind of just quickly run through that scale with you, a 0, everything is done on pen and paper. It's worth finding out kind of where you are on the scale. I imagine almost everyone is going to be a 2, 3, or 4. So that's where we see most people being. I don't think anyone's coming from 0 if they're able to attend a Zoom call here. 0, everything's done on pen and paper. Level 1, shared Dropbox or file store that everyone in the company can access. Level 2, some back office tasks are done online via SaaS apps, stuff like accounting, invoicing, project management. They have some spreadsheets and some processes that are now run out of spreadsheets. Level 3, they have online collaboration and comms tools, stuff like Zoom, Slack, or Teams, and a lot of general purpose tools and many more spreadsheets. They're using things like Trello maybe to manage processes that are kind of happening within the company. Level 4, they have integrated disparate systems. So they might have a CRM and a project management tool that are being integrated with something like Zapier, or another integration platform as a service. Level 5, they've gone through and created their own integrations to connect these systems and processes because the out-of-the-box integrations or commercially available stuff doesn't suit them. Level 6, they've created custom dashboards to collect data, process it, and develop it for themselves. Level 7, they're replacing third-party services with completely custom solutions. So, for example, they've commissioned and built their own CRM or their own order management system or their own inventory management system. And then level 8, they're completely digital first interaction model for users. So if you think about how that curve goes and how the spreadsheet model works, a company way over here at level 0 has almost no spreadsheets. Everything is online, paper, get up, stuff is collaborated, people need to work on stuff together, lots and lots of spreadsheets, lots and lots of processes. Those processes get defined, they move into applications to improve efficiency, all the way off the end of the curve where spreadsheets are only ever really used to move data around for manual analysis, never to run a process. So that's what we call the spreadsheet curve. So some common things that we're seeing in the time of COVID. We're seeing examples of people moving from pen and paper systems to actually starting to get their stuff online so that they can work from different locations if they need to. People moving siloed data, so maybe it has existed on slow servers in their offices that they've then had problems accessing, into completely online first, so using cloud storage systems like Microsoft SharePoint, Google Drive, Dropbox, or kind of some of the more integrated systems that allow better access to data. Building in automation where possible. So examples where if people are saying that people are forgetting that they have appointments and calls and things to do, like making sure that there are like email notifications going out to people to make sure that there is better attendance. If you've ever noticed when you've booked a GP's appointment recently, you'll get 5 or 6 text messages telling you to remind you that it's there. And that's for this reason, because people forget they have appointments. So they did a project of like, okay, how do we improve attendance at booked appointments? That turned out to be SMS everyone all the time to remind them that they have this appointment. One of the great ones we see a lot too, kind of in smaller businesses, is when they realize the power of things like Google Sheets or Excel Online. How many times have you maybe heard the phrase, oh, can you send me that Excel file? Someone does some work in it, and then the two files get confused because they've never been merged back together, or when they go to combine them, they're all conflicted. This is a system that can be entirely avoided by using tools like Google Sheets or the online versions of Excel. And finally, doing things like enabling remote work by default for people. So using tools like Slack and like Teams, and that's an example of a business going from a level 2 to a level 3, where they are now able to kind of go along this line. So I suspect that most people on this call are kind of around that level 2, 3, 4. They have systems in place, so they're maybe using things like Xero or Free Agent to manage their invoicing, a Receipt Bank to manage their expenses, Trello to manage their project management, but they don't have integrations and things like that between them. And that's where we see a lot of small businesses. And now we think it's the time when people are starting to look at more, okay, how do we move on from that? So in COVID times, there are 3 things that we really think people are looking at within digital transformation: improving how their employees work, finding replacement customers, and remote service delivery. 3 kind of core elements that we think people are transforming digitally. We're going to, like I said, pass on finding replacement customers here because Mark's already covered it. So improving employee productivity. Broadly, we want to help and make things easier for your employees to do. Your employees and yourself, if you're the only person in the business, broadly have their work separated into 2 broad things that they're doing: actual delivering service to people and the back office tasks that they need to do. For the sake of this, we're going to talk more about back office tasks that need to happen. But broadly, what we want to do is make everything easier for them, help them make better decisions on their own because they'll have data to be able to drive those decisions, enable them to work where it suits them, enabling them to be happier, more effective, more engaged in the work that they're doing by not kind of enforcing, what's the word I'm looking for, constraints that aren't really there on them, and helping them get in front of problems sooner. So using data to get ahead of problems and rectify them, saving time, money, and energy. So there's broadly 4 steps that we look at and going through this from an employee perspective. We're looking at processes, data, access to that data, and how people communicate and collaborate. So if we think about process first, really you need to think about what your business does. How many processes are there within the business, both to enable that business to stay active, but also to provide the service to your end customer. You know, all the stuff that broadly keeps the wheels on the bus. So how does your sales work? How does your administration work? How does finance work? How does project management work? How does capacity planning work? How do you deal with legal and compliance and auditing? How does your HR work? What about what about arranging appointments if they're dealing with your end users? Dispatching packages, ordering stock, research that goes into that. Duplicated effort where people are going to meetings, taking notes, say, and then having to transpose them into a CRM system. So we need to start by looking at what these systems are. And I usually recommend people take one thing first and get it down and get it working, and then really build on top of that. And then looking at how these systems can be moved online. For some of them, it can be really pretty straightforward. So accounting and SaaS apps and things like that for, like I said before, Free Agent and Xero are great examples of ways to move all of your accounting, bookkeeping, invoicing, all that kind of stuff online. Spreadsheets can be a great tool to prototype out what those processes need to be. And then finally, is there automation tools you can use? So stuff like Zapier or Coda or some of these other no-code platforms that allow you to kind of make your own little tools and applications that get particular jobs done. I'm a big fan of that leading into data. So from these processes, you'll now have steps, and these apps will generate lots and lots of data that you can use. Processing that data is where you kind of start to derive value within a digital transformation system. Data on its own is useless. It needs someone to interpret it. It won't tell you necessarily what to do, but it will tell you what is or isn't working. So you can set yourself an experiment, say, okay, so to come back to the customers missing appointments, say, great, if we have customers in a process that arranges appointments, we build in an email to that process that reminds them it exists or it's happening. What is the attendance rate? And then do that test. It's like, okay, if we send that email, 80% appear. If we don't send that email, only 75% appear. And well, suddenly you've got back 5% of the capacity in your business from missed appointments. So there's lots and lots of options to go there. Personally, I'm a big fan first of building what I call a customer model. So looking at who your customer is, their demographics, so all the kind of basic stuff, name, age, location, who they work for, etc. But then start to look at categorization. So following kind of into the marketing stuff, what kind of company are they? Do they fit into who you broadly want to work with? And do they fit into your skill set? And looking at that data and categorization tells you a lot about, oh, actually our customers are this kind of people when we thought they were this kind of people. And then maybe that's something that can inform your broader marketing strategy. That customer model, I also think, should include things like every marketing message that user has ever received from you, if at all possible to track. So then an integration between wherever you're keeping this customer model and your marketing system. Be like, okay, this user with this ID received emails X, Y, and Z. And tying that into however you happen to run your support if you need that. So like, okay, great, they've raised X, Y, and Z support tickets. So from those extra pieces of information, you can think of, okay, for these kinds of users, they generally got this many marketing messages before they converted. These kinds of messages are really effective at getting them to do. They tend to miss appointments, so make sure that they're in our reminder scheme. And tying that in further to the accountancy stuff, you can look at, okay, well, how long does this customer take to pay? How do they pay? How do they prefer to pay? And then use that to build out your cash flow modeling and say, okay, so we know this user is going to pay X, Y, and Z late. The ability to pull all that stuff together and have that in a single place so that an individual administrator or employee within your business, or you yourself as the director, can jump in and find that can be invaluable. Other things to look at this is the projects you have on the go with them. It's like, okay, maybe they're a long-term customer. They have come to you with all of the following projects. What does that tell you about their business and how it's going? Of the projects that come to you, how many of them did you win? How many went to someone else, or how many just kind of dropped off? What does that tell you about the kind of users you want to look at? And in turn, like, how do they treat your team? Is this a customer that someone is excited to work with? Are they very demanding? Give them the scores on like, great, their psychometrics and things like that, who on our side would be a great fit to work with them. So there's all kinds of stuff you can build into these models. Of course, this depends on having lots and lots of disparate systems. Some of the things we think you kind of need to be looking at to start building this out is definitely having CRM, so a customer relationship management system, of which there are hundreds and thousands we can possibly go through, which will be a good fit for you. Marketing often can be built into the CRM, but you want to look at an automation platform that can do email, SMS, building out those Facebook audiences that Mark mentioned, stuff like that. Support services, so stuff like help desk, Zendesk, Jira, what's it called? Service desk is the one we tend to use. Bookkeeping systems, accounting, capacity planning, HR, automation and integration platforms as a service, what your collaboration tools are and how they can be pulled together. So as software developers, we use things like GitHub and Bitbucket. How do we pull those into our project management tools so that there's an overall view of how our project is going and all the documentation in Confluence or Google Docs? How do we pull that in so everything is in one place, and where your data is stored? Having strategic kind of overview on like, okay, everything exists in these places, is managed in this way. So there's never any guessing about where anything should be. And then project process management, things like Jira and Trello. How do you pull in as much stuff into that to give an overall view of connecting things, making sure everything works streamlined, and again, saving time and making it easier for your team to work and make effective decisions on their own. And the final part of that is potentially small pieces of custom software or large pieces, depending on the scale of your business, that enable that to happen, enable that kind of overall view into what can and can't be done. Cool. Great. Next kind of along is access. One of the big things with data is that when I talk about it, you probably go, oh no, GDPR and Data Protection Act and things like that. Well, actually, a lot of this can help here. So a lot of the data we recommend collecting from that customer model doesn't count as PII and would count as stuff you would have legitimate interest and legitimate need to manage and run the business effectively. But because you now have in place systems of, okay, this data lives here and this data lives here and this data lives here, you kind of can hit off a lot of the data protection problems of like, yes, it's in these systems, but we know exactly where it is. We know exactly who has access to it, and we have to go through and give them specific access to it. And so for us, as the director, I'll have access to kind of HR and accounting software and kind of all that kind of essential billing information. But we can definitively say to our clients that, no, this, your personal private information is not accessible. It can only be accessed from these machines. So we are making it much easier for ourselves to tick off our GDPR and Data Protection Act requirements. And finally, collaborate and communicate. We now have huge data sets that people can access. That gives people choices that they can make better decisions. So our marketer can go into our database and say, actually, it looks like over the last 6 months, our incoming leads have been this type of people and we're missing that. So let's bring that back around. And we can see that they're leading into this kind of project and their longer term value is this, because that's tied into CRM. So they can see the sales that has driven out of that. That allows them to make much better decisions without having to involve me or having to go and drive big, long reports. And the system is made very easy for them to use and run. And we recommend people look into things as well, like Zoom, obviously, if we're here, and kind of going down the remote and digital by default. You know, what in the business is on paper that someone would need to be in a place to see or access, and how today that is unacceptable. Because people need to be at home, need to be able to work where it suits them, particularly if there are children involved or family criteria that they need to take care of through the day. For the vast majority of jobs, there's no reason someone needs to be off in their office. If they want to be at home, if they want to be in the office and it's safe for them to do so, great. They can still use all the same collaboration tools. It still makes everything easier in the long term. So I'm going to quickly move on to improving customer experience.
Stuart, sorry, it's
yes.
Diana here. You are actually up on time because I would like to leave some time for questions. So if you could wrap up pretty quickly, please. Thank you.
That's fine. From an improving customer experience perspective, digital transformation, we kind of have 3 criteria. We want to allow people to self-service, we want to automate repetitive tasks for them, and we want to provide content appropriate experiences to them. Let's start with kind of a context appropriate experience. So many businesses can actually now render their entire service online. Obviously, if you've got a physical product or it depends on being in a physical space, that is more challenging. But using tools like Zoom, you can run an entire training course online, either by delivering in person like we're doing here today, or using a learning management system where you've pre-recorded and uploaded, make that easier to go. Using CRM, for example, I hired a plumber the other day to service a boiler. It's a yearly service for the boiler. If that plumber has had the wherewithal to put us in a CRM and said yearly service, contact on this date to make sure they do service again, I will just sign him up and be like, yep, here you go. because he will have had the forethought to do that. But I'm 99% sure he did not think that this is a thing that needs to do yearly. Let's put him in that service. And that's a thing that is really valuable to, like, what is the buying signal that you got previously that now you know will lead on to that next kind of sale. And to go back to training experience, it's the same thing. You know, people probably have training budgets they need to do yearly. Why isn't it in your CRM and marketing set that you know the budget resets for this company at this time? So start reaching out to whoever's in charge of that training. Like, having that data and finding clever ways to use it is much more effective for businesses than just waiting on people to come in and hope that they can do their best to access that. What was this one? Automate repetitive tasks. So stuff, there we go. Automate repetitive tasks. Got Wally back. As I hate paying bills, I love to pay things by direct debit. Go cardless, I think, is one of the greatest inventions of the kind of last decade, where I can just sign up direct debits and they take it automatically, and making that easier for people to do. So I don't have to worry about paying the invoice, or paying the bill, or having kind of weird card subscriptions. So making it easy for people to do that, making it easy to manage their relationship with you and manage how they do things online with you. So portals to be able to access information on your relationship with them. I love it when some of the consulting companies we work with have a portal I can log in and grab the invoices and grab the statement of account without having to actually talk to someone and bother someone, because I can do it in my own time and I can get it when I need it rather than asking and then waiting for them to deal with it. So my customer experience is greatly improved by them having thought digitally first and allowing me to access that information. But again, it's not appropriate for every business, but those are examples of things that we can do. And I think I'm going to wrap up there, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Stuart. I mean, what a lot of content that we've had from both Stuart and Mark. We might need to run another session, I feel, on the same sort of stuff. But I just want to check with people, because we are literally 5 minutes off finishing time. Are people happy to stay 5 minutes longer so we can just get through the questions? Great. Okay. So I'll start going through the questions that are up online, and then obviously if you want to add them in, or you can raise your hand and I'll take your question. So Stuart, can I ask that you mute yourself, because you've got a lot of background noise. So I think it's Stuart anyway. Yeah, I think so anyway. Maybe it wasn't. So Mark, first question, which actually is from me, but you know, in the business to business world, obviously we don't have to shop local. As a Chamber of Commerce, that's really what we're all about, isn't it? Is local to local. But I just wondered what your thought was, or if you've seen any stats on buyers, people that make these buying decisions in businesses. Do you think they'll look more local now, or they'll just look on the web and buy, you know, buy from what they see through Google Ads and all of that?
Yeah, business to business is obviously different, and that's always quite a challenging one. In terms of where they operate online, I think it's a little bit more old school. So it's not like you're selling a product on Facebook. I think people do use Google search to find what they want, and they are looking for a more corporate kind of offering. So if you want to compete in that market, I would look at search engine optimization to make sure your website is properly optimized and you're on the front page of Google for whatever it is you sell. If you can't do that, then definitely Google AdWords, because I think consumer business, you can advertise to someone and you can tempt them to buy, like a wardrobe, a new shirt, a pair of shoes. You can do that via social media. But business to business, people are generally looking to buy as a task on their to-do list. So you need to be there when they're searching. So search engine optimization and Google AdWords would be the two I look at there. Yeah,
great, thank you. Now, Ian Sinnott has asked us again about mobile searches as people are based at home more. Has there been a change from mobile searches to more for access to PCs, either laptops or desktops at home?
I have read many times it's gone up. I don't have a figure of how much it's actually gone up by. There's a few things. The best thing you can do for mobile is Google's algorithm actually swapped maybe a couple of years ago to, they used to use two algorithms, one for desktop websites and one for mobile. They now actually favor mobile first. So the best thing you can do is to test your website on mobile, look at the Google tools and just make sure that it passes all of Google's checks, because then you'll rise up higher in the mobile search.
Right, great, okay. And Sarah Austin from the Really Helpful Club, you talked about, I think it was Google, where you put your location. So obviously some businesses operate in several locations or from several locations. So would you have to put in all the postcodes or areas, or how would that work?
Yeah, you can set within, if you've got one main business, you can set within particular locations, but that's more if you only provide that service in those locations. If you're in Merton but you can provide a service to someone in Glasgow, then you just set it as nationwide. Or if you've got individual stores, if you've got a bookshop, say, you can set up one master profile and then individual locations for those places.
Yeah. So that would apply to an accountancy, for example, that was operating in multiple locations. Great, okay. Right, now Stuart then, another question actually, which is from me. Obviously, I think everyone aspires to achieve digital transformation. And the main barriers, I think, to a lot of people are time, money, and skills. So I just wanted to get from you what you felt the feel for that is in terms of the balance. Is it just about investing financially, or is it about upskilling, which is the big trend at the moment, isn't it? Is upskilling our people on digital skills, particularly in just some of those easy things like Slack and Trello before you get onto even automated platforms?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. There certainly is investment in platforms, and I always recommend that you pay for platforms. I know it's very tempting to kind of go for the free and cheap, but the longer term cost of that is probably higher. And if you look at things like the paywall, you're having to self-host that, or it maybe goes away because it wasn't financially viable for the creators. So there is an element of like you just needing to purely invest in the tools to do the work, but you will need to upskill people as well. Not necessarily that they need some training on specific platforms, but that they may just need general digital confidence. Teams and Slack as two that you mentioned are very hard to break. You can go in and play, and if you can type, they are easy to undo anything you did, and you can use them, and they're fairly intuitive. I appreciate that when you first look at them, there's a lot of overwhelm, there's a lot of stuff there, but encouraging it. And there's a cultural element too within your business as well. Like, it's okay for you to make mistakes because everyone is learning at the same time, and people have to be kind to each other. And obviously you'll have your own kind of documentation and stuff that goes with it, but it's kind of across all of those aspects.
Okay, thank you. And one here from Florence, who runs a training centre for academic students. So she obviously has different types of processes. Florence, I don't know if you want to come in on this, but she's looking at saying, how do you convert that into a robust online system when you've probably got multiple processes that are done in different ways?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Florence, add to that.
Thanks, Diana.
Yeah.
Yes, we run a training center for, as I said, academic students. These are GCSE and A-levels. And of course, I'm sure you've all heard what happened during this period. And so now we're looking to automate the system. Sorry, I knew this was going to happen. That's why I muted myself. We're looking to now automate the system whereby our trainers can train students online using Zoom. We've been doing that over the summer, but I think we need something that is more robust so that we can access our students and they can access us and be able to pay online. So Stuart, you were talking about all the integration and collaboration. I'm going to mute myself again, but if you could just, I hope that makes some sense to you.
Okay, thank you, Florence. Stuart then, yeah.
Cool. So I think it's great that you've already started kind of down that process of delivering the content over Zoom. So I think the next step that you want to look at is making that kind of process map within the business. So like, okay, here's how we manage kind of the back end of like putting students into classes, how students, kind of what that marketing funnel is of like, okay, students / teachers are, finding us, and then moving through a process of engaging with us, and then moving in the process of like actually being educated and taking classes, and then what happens afterwards. Map that all out, and then pick a point in the middle that makes the most sense to start with. And you've already done that, like, okay, we're delivering over Zoom. So for you, because your use case is quite specific, I think you're going to end up needing to do some custom stuff where you need to be like, okay, here's our database of students, here's the classes, we separate those into that classes, and here is the scheduling kind of tools that happen around that as well. But you can back that and have different systems talking to different things using integration platforms like Zapier, and I think it's called Datadog. So basically pump data into Datadog, and it like transforms it and sends it out to other things that you have intimated that you want that data to go to. Sorry, I'm not entirely sure I'm actually answering your question there, Florence. Does that make sense?
I don't know if Florence is there, but I think what Florence, I think you've articulated really multiple processes that need to be addressed. And I think that's the challenge for most small growing businesses, is that we all have multiple processes. And it seems to me what Stuart is saying is take a step-by-step approach to that, because obviously it's an expensive transformation, both in terms of money and time. So I would say do what is most important to your business first, and actually some low-hanging fruit. So for example, doing sessions on Zoom is actually very, very easy to set up and do, as we have proven. We've been doing them since week 2 of lockdown, and that is now our modus operandi. Okay, so let's obviously all of you, we'll be sharing Mark and Stuart's email with you, so they're there. Obviously, we have got through a huge amount of content. Can I just ask you all, through the reactions button, if you would like to run something like this again, because I feel we haven't done justice to some of the discussion around what both Mark and Stuart have presented. Would you want that, or do you think you've got enough to go away with and do what you need to do? So just to ask if you would like another session. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it's about 5, 6. It's about 50% or so. So I hope that you've made connections. You obviously have Mark and Stuart that you can contact. We will share the recording of the session. If you would like to delve more deeply into some of the things that were presented today, there was a lot of substance there, then please let us know, because our forward program of these Reach Out and Connect is really about digital. So I'm pleased to say to you that next week on the 10th of September, same time, 9:30, we have a session on your branding message, which is being run for us by Time and Leisure. I think that really flows very nicely from the communication and the messaging that has been touched upon by Stuart and Mark. We're also supporting the Really Helpful Club in a whole digital Back to Business event on the 23rd of September. So more information is available on that as well. So once again, thanks to all of you for participating today. I've certainly got some actions for us to take away, and I hope all of you do as well. Once again, thank you to Merton Council for working with us on presenting these webinars, and we hope to see you very shortly at another Reach Out and Connect, hopefully next week. So take care everyone, and thank you.